My husband and I moved to Mexico in 2021, the end of 2021, and we've been here almost 2 years. We have spent quite a big portion of our savings on building on a new studio, or a new home, a new house that is bigger than the studio that we live in. And we have been building it on one of the properties that we purchased years before we moved here for very cheap, a couple $100 or so. So we've basically tried everything. And what I mean by that is we're starting to realize that this part of Mexico, this particular area where we currently live in Campeche, the state of Campeche, is not where God wants us to be. My husband wanted to leave from here last year, and I just stuck to the plan and said, look, okay, this is where I think we're supposed to be. Things will work out. But the longer that we have stayed here, the more we have realized, especially me, the more I have realized that maybe this isn't exactly where we are supposed to be at all, because nothing has worked for us here. And in fact, it's been the opposite. Everything has been negative. Everything that we've tried to do doesn't work out. Everything that we have spent money on, we feel like it's been for nothing. More problems just keep stacking up on top of everything that's already happened. For those of you who follow my episodes, you probably already know, because I've talked about it a million times, about the electricity situation. Don't worry, I'm not going to get into that too much, but I'm just going to briefly say, for those who do not know, where we live in Mexico, in our particular area, the electricity goes out all the time, constantly. It's a huge nuisance. It goes out and stays out all day long. Sometimes it goes out more than once. The longest we've been without electricity is 6 days. We've had food ruined in our refrigerator and our freezer. I have gone days without being able to work. And then when the electricity goes out, when it's super, super hot, which is most of the year, it's sweltering in here. And it's just a very big downside to where we live. So another thing is the water situation, where my husband literally has to get a gigantic container and put it in the back of the truck and take it to another community a few minutes away and purchase water and then bring it back. And it takes 3 hours for him to transport the water from the container in the back of the truck to the water container on our roof, which then is filtered into our pipes that feed the sinks and the toilet. So that's another thing. It's a hassle. Recently, we've had a lot of problems with the internet. So far, the longest the internet has been out is 10 days. And what's even worse about that is the people who we pay our internet service for, they don't even call us back. They don't explain to anyone what's going on. They don't give a time frame, and they don't give us any money back for the days that we have missed. And on top of that, because I am a white person, I know that some people might have a problem with what I'm about to say, but it is true. It happens here. A lot of people know it as the white tax, but people see that my husband is married to a gringa, I'm quoting with my fingers, and we have a decent looking car, and people see this, and they want to charge us more for everything. So we're paying $30 a month for our internet, which is terrible internet. I'm talking when it does work, it doesn't work. The same internet company charged my husband's sister, not knowing that, she is his sister. They charged her $10 a month. And I don't even think she had an installation fee, and they charged us $150 for an installation fee. So we run into that problem here. That's just an example with the internet. but we run into that problem here a lot whenever we go to buy food, anything. Oh, like when my husband, because everybody knows that he's married to me, they think that because I'm white for some reason that I have a lot of money and that we're living richly here, and that so they just want to make sure that they get as much as they can from us. So it is a huge problem for us living this deep in Mexico, where you don't really see any white people at all. The only really place you see white people are in the tourist areas, in Mexico City, which is also a tourist area, or on the border close to the United States. You don't really see white people here. I'm the only white person for miles and miles and miles around here. So we have the big target on our back because of that. On top of that, my husband is a professional boxer, and a lot of people know who he is. But the problem is, he doesn't make the money like Canelo or any of these other big-time names in boxing. He hardly makes any money at all. In fact, his last fight, he paid his opponent instead of him getting paid. So my husband is not making all this money in boxing, but people around here think that he does. So we have a tough time here because already everything's more expensive. Like when you go into the city and you go to the stores, my husband saw a Ninja blender in a store called Electra. It's a big chain store here in Mexico, and the peso, I don't remember the peso on it, but the equivalent of the dollar equivalent, the US dollar of this price was $345 for a Ninja blender. In that same blender, you can get at Walmart online in the United States for $80-something. And I had this same situation recently. We went to Walmart in the state of Campeche to get a Christmas tree. I explained this in one of my videos as well, but I'm just going to quickly say it really quick. We wanted to get a 6-foot Christmas tree, and they wanted to charge $650 was the price for this Christmas tree. And it was terrible quality. So the same tree was on Walmart.com in the United States for like $140 or $160, I can't remember. $100-something. So on top of everything being more 3 to 4, even 5 times more expensive, we also get the white tax and the boxer tax, because everybody around here thinks that we are rich for some reason, and they want to charge us more than they would normal everyday community people. So there is that. Then there is the issue of how far we live from a decent hospital. The closest hospital from us is 40 minutes away, and it is a bad hospital. I was there. I have a firsthand experience in this hospital. That's another episode for another day when I talk about my whole hospital experiences here in Mexico. I'm going to just completely give every detail I can give you, but to make it short here, I'm just going to say the closest hospital that we live to that is a good hospital is about 5 hours away in Merida. We live very far away from a hospital. If anything was to ever happen to either of us and we needed emergency medical care, if it was life-threatening, we might die before we get to a hospital that can actually save our lives. And that is just really kind of terrifying to me. I am not used to being so far away from a hospital, but even worse, so far away from a hospital that is clean and it boggles my mind how the hospitals are and the experiences that I've had that already, I actually had a surgery here in Mexico. So I have plenty of experience and proof, and I wouldn't be just talking about about these hospitals and these things that go on in the hospitals if I didn't have firsthand experience. So let's just say that I am afraid to go to a hospital here. And even if I needed to go to one, the closest one is so far away that it's just very scary. So that is also on the list. Another thing is, I just am done with airplanes. I do not want to get on an airplane ever again in my life. I just don't want to do it. I went my whole life without getting on one. It It has always been like my biggest fear. And I did get on one finally in 2021 to come here to Mexico because I was too afraid to drive through the border at the U.S.-Mexico border, because, you hear the horror stories, about the stuff that goes on at the border, the cartel violence and things. And, I just have been afraid to do it. I didn't want to drive through Mexico that way. So I had to force myself to get on a plane to come here. And that was very difficult for me. And people often say, well, once you do it a few times, you get used to it. I'm sorry, but that's not been the case. That has not been my experience at all. In fact, the last time that I got on the plane was my 5th time, and I was pretty traumatized after that. And I did a video on this called Don't Get on the Plane 2023, if you're interested. It's on my YouTube channel and on my podcast. I just do not want to get on a plane again. And I really feel like I want to live closer to the border. And so that way, whenever I need to go visit my family, whenever I want to go to the United States, it's literally right across the border, and I can just get in the car and go and be on my merry way. But just to plan right now to go to the United States, it's such a traumatic experience for me, because even if it's 7-8 months out, I'm already traumatized before. I'm going to stay traumatized that whole 7 and 8 months. And I can't live like that anymore. And then, there are other things that we have been dealing with around here in this community that we live in. We've had things stolen from us. We have people lie to us. We can't trust anybody. We've paid lots of money for people to do different jobs for us, like building on our studio, for instance. We've had a lot of issues with that, theft, a lot of money down the drain, people dealing with alcoholics and drug addicts, and it's just been a very terrible experience. We also paid a so-called professional man to make doors and a window for us on the other part of the studio that we live in, that we are using right now as a mini gym where he's trying to train kids. And we paid about $600 for this job, and it took almost a month for the guy to bring the doors and the window. And the installation job was so terrible that there's damage to the walls, there's paint on the walls, there's water coming through every time it rains. There's big gaps underneath where the window and the window frame meet. Terrible, terrible job. We've paid other people to do other things, and nobody does anything right. Everybody just does everything, kind of half. There's no professional jobs out here. Like, no one in this area does anything in a professional manner that we have so far that we have had experiences with. I'm not saying everybody is like that. I'm just saying so far, every single person that we have dealt with in different fields, construction and all these other kinds of businesses, it's just, we feel like we're wasting our money. And speaking of the mini gym, my husband, we invested a little bit of money into that. We painted it, we smoothed the walls, we bought some equipment to put in there, so he could train some kids and make a little money doing that. And so far, it's been open for almost 2 weeks, and not one kid has shown up. So many people have told him, oh, I'm going to bring my kids, asking him how much is it, when's he going to open, talking him into changing the ages from 7 down to 4. Oh, I have a 4-year-old. I want to bring my 4-year-old, but so he changed the ages, and he told them, okay, you can bring your 4-year-old, and they say, okay, I'm going to bring him next Tuesday, and they never show up. My husband goes into that gym 3 days a week, and he sits there looking on his phone, waiting for somebody to show up, and not one person. All these people around here, they just talk and talk, and nobody does anything that they say they're going to do. So we feel like we've wasted money on that. We've wasted time on that. And on top of that, we live right next to his family, which, his mom is great. I like his mom. She's a really nice person. But his father, we do not call him his father anymore. But, he's an alcoholic, and he has already threatened my husband several times. He'd get drunk, and I left this kind of abusive family stuff alone. I left it behind me a long time ago when I left an abusive relationship with my kids when my kids were very young. And I have not had to be around that kind of environment ever since then. Back in 1998, that's when I left. And now all of a sudden, I feel like I'm just right back in that kind of environment because we live right next door to an alcoholic, a belligerent alcoholic. And I've had like a lot of nerves, like very nervous reactions to, them fighting out there in the front yard. We've had to put a fence up. So these are just a few of the things. And it's already taken me almost 20 minutes just to explain just the few things, the few that have been going on that we've had to deal with since we've been here. We've seen no progress. There is nothing that we see that we are to look forward to. Whenever we try to do something like build the studio or our little house down there, just any kind of project, any kind of thing that we want to do to make money, nothing ever pans out. And it just seems to be getting worse and worse. We're getting nowhere with anything. We briefly lived in Ciudad del Carmen, which is an island city about 3 hours from here. And it was a very hectic city. It's like living in a sardine can. Everything is smashed together. The traffic is very heavy and very chaotic and crazy. And even then, we felt more comfortable, I think, living there than living here and dealing with all these things that we've been dealing with and all these people. But we don't want to live in a city like that for sure. But back then, my husband was like, he didn't really want to live in this community. And I just kept telling him, no, we need to stay in the community. We've got a lot of money invested there. We have a home, a little studio that we don't have to pay rent. The utilities are so low that, it's practically, we're not even paying utilities because we pay so little. So it would be crazy for us to go rent somewhere else or, somewhere far away. And I was just looking at it like I'm tired of moving around. And I just want us to be in a place where we feel like we're at home and we're comfortable. And I wanted to make this that place. Unfortunately, I'm now realizing that this is not it. This is not where we were meant to be. I think we were meant to be in Mexico. Otherwise, I don't think God would have let us come here. I don't think God would have taken my fear of getting on that plane. He took my fear. When I prayed about it, He made me happy to be coming here. He made me excited. And I prayed many, many times about this. And I asked God, please, if this is not where we are supposed to be, if this is not where you want us to be, God lifted my fear of getting on the plane. He lifted it from my heart and from my shoulders. He made me feel excited about coming here and feeling anticipation. And He took all the fears about everything. And then we did it. So I know we're supposed to be here for something. We haven't quite figured out what that reason is yet. Reason or reasons, we don't know. But we know we are supposed to be in Mexico. But I am now convinced we are not supposed to be in this community where we live. We are too far away from any kind of civilization, from a hospital. We're too far away from everything. We can't function here. We can't grow here. we can't do anything here because we've already tried. And instead of something looking like it might look up or it might eventually work out, instead of filling us with any kind of positive vibes, it fills us with the exact opposite. Everything goes wrong. Everything is just in a bad place. And we feel negative vibes with everything we do here. So, in conclusion, we think we need to move. We're not exactly sure where because we have no money. We have very little money in the bank. We don't really know where to go. We don't know, at this point, we don't know where. All we do know is that this is not the place for us. So I have been actually eyeing this place, this town, this city. It's on the border, the northern border. It's like right across from Eagle Pass, Texas. It's called Piedras Negras, which is like English for Black Rock, I think he said it was. Piedras Negras. And I've read that it's a fairly safe city, in the top 10 safest cities in all of Mexico. Of course, it still makes me nervous because it's right there on the border, and you have to go through the states that are considered do not travel states in Mexico. There's a website for in the United States that, updates Americans on where places in the world it's best not to travel, or where you should practice increased caution and whatnot. They have different levels 1 through 4. And there are 4 states that we would have to cross through the center of, or between. Tamaulipas is one of them, is considered a level 4. And that is like the highest level of do not travel to this state because of the violence and the crime and the cartel action. Apparently, that goes on there. But at this point, I have been eyeing that place for several days now. And one reason I really would like to go there is because it's right there on the border of Texas, and that if I need to go to a hospital, if I need to go see my family, or whatever the case, I can just cross the border and go into Texas, get the medical care that I feel like I would need, instead of being terrified to go into a hospital from here. But then there are other places. My husband mentioned Mexico City, and I'm not really leaning toward Mexico City. I don't really want to go there, but I'm not going to rule anything out. If it's something he wants to check out, we can check it out. Another option is our original plan was to live on or near the beach, but of course we have to have money to do that. So, especially in the tourist areas, or in the city of Merida, or the state of Yucatan, or Quintana Roo, rent prices would be sky high because a lot of white people live there and a lot of tourists go there. So everything is more expensive in areas like that. So we would not be able to afford rent in something that is decent, nice. The only way we would be able to afford rent is to move in something even worse than what we're living in. And I refuse to do that. I'm not going to move from our comfortable little studio, even though it's not comfortable once you walk outside. But I refuse to move from here, where we pay no rent and barely any utilities at all, and then move into something even worse and then pay sky-high rent. And that's what would happen if we were to go to a place like that. So to wrap this episode up, it's just something I needed to get off my chest, like everything, like all of these episodes for the most part. And I want to kind of update everybody on where I'm at and what's going on. And that's what's going on now, is we are looking to move from this place. We don't really see making this our home anymore. There's just too many things that we have to contend with, too many hurdles to jump over. And I don't really look at it as giving up. I look at it as a sign that we need to move on. Even if we were to stay here and finish building our studio, it would take up to 5 to 10 years before we could do that. I'm already 48. I don't want to be 58 years old, almost 60 years old by the time I actually have a home that we can live in together and call our own. That's a little ridiculous. I know he feels the same way too. We're tired of waiting on everything. We've been waiting since even before we came here. Almost the whole time we've been together since 2015, we've been waiting on something to happen. And nothing has happened. We've just been taking the steps and trying to do things and trying to make things happen because they weren't happening by themselves, which they usually don't. So now we're just trying to figure out where we're supposed to be. May God bless you, your family, and your life.